Welcome back, Southwestern Kinesiology students. Today we're going to be talking about axes of rotation and different planes that we use to describe movements in kinesiology and anatomy. I'm going to include a picture first that you can look over that has all the planes on it, and then we'll go over some examples of these movements within each plane. In the description, I have included a link to a video that has an animation of all of these axes of rotation. It can show you in a little bit more detail how the joint is actually rotating along these. That will be a little bit easier to see in that skeleton instead of in a person. So for now, we'll go over the planes. We have the coronal plane first, which is also sometimes called the frontal plane. I like to think of this one as running shoulder to shoulder and then extending out to my sides. So anything that's like a jumping jack movement or abduction and adduction will be along this coronal plane. You can also think of hip abduction and adduction, that would be along this plane as well. The axes of rotation for this is our anterior posterior axis of rotation. Another way to remember that is that if this plane is running shoulder to shoulder and going across me, that means that it would be splitting me into anterior and posterior parts. Our next plane we'll talk about is our sagittal plane. This one would split us into left and right, so it's going to be running this way, straight towards you and then straight behind me. Things along this axis, I always think of walking. We swing our arms along this sagittal plane, as well as things like a bicep curl would be moving along that plane. The axis of rotation for this is the medial lateral axis. So with that bicep curl, think of a rod going straight through my elbow joint, and as I'm bending it, that elbow is rotating along our medial lateral axis.